Bye.
Okay, you got that fresh, clear coated hood.
Yep.
Money
We
man.
got the front cover off.
Oh, you didn't even tell them you're switching the intercooler setup, did you?
No. Yeah. Well, you'll see it next episode probably. So we're throwing the intercooler in front of the radiator. It still would have worked behind on top, but like everyone in the comments were saying, it will be fresher, cooler air in front. And what I was really worried about at first was it cooling down running into temperature problems with the coolant issue, obviously. The intercooler I wasn't really that worried about. But since the radiator we have is a dual pass radiator, and I mean, it should really be super efficient, so I'm not too worried about it. So yeah. Intercooler in front of the radiator, still doing the same duct thing out of the hood, so it'll be a big scoop. So air will just go through the intercooler, through the radiator, up out the hood, just like we were still planning. But so we have the front cover off the engine and the oil pan off because Josh is welding up a bung to put in the front cover.
Oh, the timer chain cover?
Yeah, for the oil to drain out of the turbo into that.
Yeah, that's really important too. Like, definitely do it above the oil level.
Yeah, some people put them in the oil pans, and X, you ran into that problem, right?
Yeah, I did the oil pan setup, and the oil would just build up. So by having a timer chain cover, it allows it to fully drain through, and you don't have to worry about smoking.
Yeah, it won't block up the oil drain tube, basically.
Yeah, and especially if you're tracking it, you want that shit to flow as freely as possible.
Exactly. But so we got Josh doing that. He's building the intercooler off the intercooler core, building me a catch can, some other stuff, and then he'll be back next week to do the actual mounting of the, like setting the turbo location and all that stuff. Actually, we have the turbo over here. Chill. Ford Warner.
Damn. Got a big boy.
Yeah, 257 SXE. It should be perfect for what I'm doing. Josh, the guy that we were just talking about that does all the welding, he's just basically going to build a full titanium dump pipe off of the back half of this. And we actually have a stainless steel V-band clamp that's going to get welded to the back of the turbo. And then we have a titanium female end of the V-band clamp because Vibrant sells them in 2 different pieces. So that whole down pipe to the rest of the exhaust down the door will all be titanium.
What's the reason of doing titanium?
Lightweight, baby. I couldn't resist. But so basically what he's going to do next time he comes by, we're going to do like intercooler mock-up and stuff like that. But we're going to set the turbo where we need it to, where we need it to be. I have the flange for this and everything, and the flange for the head exhaust side of the actual engine.
Okay.
And what we'll do is he'll basically use a bar and weld it to the flange on this, and then he's going to take it back to his house, so he's got a lot of time, and he'll make the actual whole manifold and everything for that.
But in the meantime,
some
fabrication work coming?
While he's doing that, we might as well keep rolling with some body panels. So what we're going to do today is take this front clip that we obviously made a long time ago and connect this front lip to it, and then these front flares to it as well. And basically what I'm going to do is make a plug for the molds for the 2 flares and then a separate mold for the whole front lip. We're just using these panels as baselines, and then I'm going to build off of them, so they're not going to be these exact panels, obviously. Where a lot of times when people run 240s with flares, they run a flare and the flare tapers in, and then this front lip just goes completely straight. So it ends up like looking like that. I think it looks like garbage. So we're gonna have this the one molded in piece kind of. It'll still have a seam here where the front lip will bump off, but the bottom half of the flare will actually be built into this, so it'll actually look all uniform. Correct. It'll actually be better for airflow as well, because it's not gonna just direct air straight into your tire. Cool. So that's the game plan for today. After we get the panels mocked up there and start changing them and stuff, we also need to make sure that there's a flange. So we'll probably have to build the inside of this out with foam or something like that. There needs to be a flange around the part that you're building for the mold, because the mold needs to have like a maybe inch, 2 inch, 3 inches best really, flange around the entire thing.
Because you're doing with vacuum bagging method with this, right?
Yeah, so, and after we're done these, we're gonna go back to like the mold building series that we started. We're, after meeting with Fiberglass, they're sending us a whole bunch of stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and start making the molds for the front flares, front lip, and the rear flares that we've already gotten ready for mold making. And then we're gonna do a whole series on different ways to make carbon fiber parts, because there's 4 essential different ways to make the same exact part. And we'll go over the benefits and techniques on how to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
But that'll be next after this. But so today we just gotta get to making these panels fit up.
All right, let's get it.
Let's do it. So this lip doesn't fit very well at all to the stock body in general, just because it's too thin. So we're gonna cut it in the center, space it out a little bit, and then reattach it with a gap, and then we can fill that later. But we need to make sure that these ends fit correctly, and right now it's like not wide enough for the stock body.
Okay,
I had this lip mounted to this car when it was a full stock front end, and it fit terribly already. So. And this is from a good brand and everything too, so I mean, I think they're just all a little off because they've been recreated for, I don't know, who knows how many times. But, so we just need to make sure that this one fits perfectly.
So that you gotta fill in that gap. So make it fit up. All right.
But well, the main thing is going to be the gap in the front once we cut that.
Yeah.
Space everything in, but it'll be easy. So we just threw this on the front end just to make sure that the wheel would clear this. As soon as you add extra track to the wheels, well actually if you add track, the turning radius should be the same. But as soon as you like add width of the wheel and stuff like that, then it actually extends the amount that it turns left and right. So you need to make sure that the flare can actually compensate for it. It's not going to get hit by the wheel. So as soon as you turn, you don't hit your flare.
Yeah.
I think everybody got Something in their past, some sin, some awful secret thing. A lot of people walk around like they're already dead, just need to be put out of their misery.
So you need to wait for that epoxy to dry on that section.
What's the reason that you said you did that for again?
The overall width of the front lip was just not correct.
So by cutting in the middle, spacing it out, it allowed you to
Widen the whole thing, but the two ends that match up are still the same dimensions. So just widen the center where it's easiest. This flat section, I just have to match up. Same width, so I can just sand this, put some top coat over it, fill that basically little divot in there, make it straight, super easy, versus like trying to cut it on the edges and make it match up a little bit.
It would be a nightmare.
Yeah. This would probably take 10 minutes to be done.
Cool.
Well, plus dry time, 20 minutes, but.
Depending on temperature, plus 2 minutes.
Plus or minus 2 minutes. So this is all dried up here in the front. Now that the lip's at that correct width that we want, all I'm gonna do is just sand this slightly. If you're gonna keep this on your car, you need to sand this epoxy completely, like really well, or otherwise it would have an air bubble in between it. And then once it gets hot, it would pop. But this, I'm literally just using as a plug for a mold. So as soon as I make the mold, it's getting trashed, I don't really care. So just gonna sand this so I can get some of this fiberglass
Filler?
Yeah. Like short strand fiberglass body filler. So I'm pretty much just gonna sand that. Let me fill that in this gap. And then I'm gonna clamp this, if I can, to the bottom here, and then just fill that, shape it, and then this will be back to being the correct shape, but wider. So while that fiberglass mud dries, I'll have this ready next. I'm just gonna hit the top down once it's fully dry, skim it with some regular mud, and then it should be good to go from there. Oh, hello.
All right.
All right. What do we have here? So this is all 90% there. I'll probably do a slight skim coat of some top coat on it later. But this is now wider. It's the correct shape again. I filled the little holes that we made in there for the quick release guys. Because now that I made it wider, these probably won't line up correctly, but in the new part, we'll just drill new holes. But, so next step basically is gonna be building this out, maybe building it back a little bit. Just changing the shape of that. Then once we have that shape all built, we'll cut this where this basically will be its own separate piece. So the lip will be molded into this section of the front flare, and then these flares will come and stop here, and they'll line up with the lip correctly. This is kind of the thing I was talking about.
Oh.
This doesn't look good. But once we're done with it, it'll look great.
You make it look good. That's how you get things.
And then we're gonna mold all of this. We're gonna mold this flare separately. The lip is gonna be a mold. That flare is gonna be a mold. And then the two rear flares you already saw, we started making a plug for, which is what this is, it's the plug.
Yeah, we'll link it in. If you haven't seen, okay, I can't get my camera
He
on.
can't turn his hand that much.
Yeah, if y'all haven't
link it
seen
below, yeah,
somewhere, maybe there.
We did a whole episode on making a mold part 1, making the plug.
Plug
walk. Yeah, so next we're gonna keep rolling with that, but then also Josh should be back with the intercooler, timing chain cover, so we can put all that stuff back together. My motor doesn't have to be all torn apart. Sketchy, just chilling in my engine.
Super sketchy.
It's really nice the way I have it set up though, because the oil pan literally just dropped right out and the front cover came right off. I didn't have to unbolt the motor or trans or anything or move anything. It's all
Lucky you.
plenty of room.
So
But yeah, so we'll set up the turbo location. Turbo. Pew pew. We'll set the location of it, and then Josh is gonna take that and go back to his place and
his layer.
take his time back to his lair. His secret lair.
Underground layer of welding.
Welding and CRXs.
All right, cool.
But yeah, that's it. Till the next time.
Like, comment,
Subscribe. Become a member.